is going to be focusing on one of the five hindrances that occurs in Buddhism, or the explanation is from Buddhism, but one of the five hindrances that we see quite present in our daily lives and experiences, with that being desire. So we'll start out class in a seated meditation and open up this class more with drawing insight in on what desire is, how we might see it show up in our daily experience, and how Buddhism defines how we can continue to move past it. So when you are ready, let's go ahead and get started in a cross-legged seat if that feels comfortable for you. Maybe you lie down or any other position that you'd like to come into in these next couple breaths. Again, we are starting out in a brief meditation, looking at what Buddhism has to say about desire. Once you've found your way into this comfortable seat, maybe you want to close your eyes or keep your eyes open, whatever feels best and most empowering for you. And begin to observe your breath. And in this space, we cultivate a deeper awareness to come into this class today. So Buddhist text really likens this idea of desire in the mind to a pond that has been filled with dye. We no longer can see the bottom of the pond. Our vision is obscured. And to really explore this idea of desire, the question often comes up, what is it I really want and need in order to be happy? And we can take note that feelings of desire are really quite natural in our daily experience. But when we follow them to find our true happiness, we also must be aware of potential dangers and barriers that they can cause and create in our own lives. When the source of satisfaction or happiness is really seen as limited, we often fix upon it. And such attachment restricts us not only by narrowly defining what we want, but also narrowly defining what we think is possible for us. So desire creates these limitations of our own fullest experience. And even in this meditation that we're doing in this moment, you might start to notice desire pop up. Desire to maybe exit out of the meditation, or even desire to stay in the meditation longer. Desire happens quite naturally, and then it's up to how we're receiving it on whether or not we fully move into the desire that's popping up, or we can invite more neutrality around desire itself, not letting it dictate our responses. So whatever is coming up for you in these next few breaths, I invite you more to take insight from it, continuing to notice your breath and also noticing the thoughts of potentially desire or other thoughts pop up in your mind. Then using the breath to come back to an anchor of awareness that allows you to develop insight from what you're experiencing. We'll be here for just a couple more breaths before we start to move our physical bodies. Take one more breath here. And then exhale, let it out with a sigh. And we'll meet onto your mat into child's pose. So with this theme of desire today, I laugh because it's a pretty intense theme, right? We can take notice again of what's showing up in both body and mind and how desire might contribute to this practice today. Knowing that we show up in our own humanity and really take note that we are completely human when desire does pop up. But then how can we continue to learn from where our desires are taking us? While you're in child's pose, maybe take your toes together, knees wide. Great place to even outstretch your arms. And continue to cultivate your ujjayi breath, your slow inhales in and exhales out through your nose. We'll be here for the next couple breaths, grounding into our asana today. And while you're here, we can cultivate this idea of neutrality by simply taking notice of our body in this pose. Maybe instead of saying that you need to be in a certain pose or do a certain thing in order to do your yoga, invite in a soft awareness around this practice that allows you curiosity to be less definitive of how and why you're moving into the poses. We'll take one more full breath here. And exhale out. Let's rise up towards a tabletop position. We'll take a couple times just to move through your own variations of cat-cow to generate some heat into the spine. And with these 5 hindrances within Buddhism, it's not necessarily saying that we are bad humans for experiencing these hindrances. It's just part of life where things show up in our daily experience, and then we are offered insight and opportunity to fully acknowledge them. Once you've taken a couple times to move through your own cat-cow, we'll meet into our first downward facing dog. And knowing that you can move your downward facing around by bending one knee at a time, maybe saying yes and no with the head. Each time that we come into a pose, just noticing where the mind goes. Usually desire pops up for me in downward facing dog, where I think that I have to get my heels down to the ground. That's usually a typical desire that shows up. And knowing that that is not necessarily the main point of this pose, but do take note where desire might pop up and then how we can detach from that desire. We'll continue to set this theme for the practice by moving slowly into our body these first couple poses. Drop your knees back down towards tabletop. And we'll take our first back bend, hands towards the hips, press your hips forward for camel. So just a gentle back bend to warm up into the collarbone, create some openness into your chest. And then on your exhale, drop your hands back down towards tabletop. We'll move into our arms now, creating more space between our shoulder blades by taking that right arm up towards the ceiling and then threading your right arm all the way through. Drop your right shoulder blade down towards the mat. Continue to relax the head here. Can we stay for a couple breaths? So allowing ourselves to offer curiosity still. And during this practice today, we will definitely be moving a bit faster in just a few moments, but laying the groundwork here to build your practice, inclusive of mentally, emotionally, and physically. Slowly come out, tabletop position. We'll move towards the other side, left arm up. Thread your arm all the way through, drop your left shoulder blade down. Again, staying for a couple breaths, knowing that you can take any variation that feels supportive for you in this moment. Acknowledging your breath while you're here. Still using it as an anchor of awareness. Last breath. Next inhale, come back out towards tabletop position. Downward facing dog is again where we meet, second round here. And knowing that you can still pedal it out or take any other movement that feels nice in downward to continue to stay supported in body and mind. Take one more full breath, then maybe a lion's breath out through your mouth. On your next inhale, shift forward towards your high plank, knowing that you can always drop your knees down in this first high plank position or really any time to create more steadiness into your body. And slowly lower all the way down towards the belly. We'll take our first Cobra Pose. So untuck those toes and use your back body to lift your chest. Just take note how much upper body strength you're using by hovering your hands up off the mat. Then tune in deeper into the lower back. Continue to lift from there. Exhale, lower down. Tabletop position, press back. Downward facing dog, rise up. Another lion's breath here. Inhale. Exhale, sigh out. On your next breath, walk your hands towards the back of the mat. Meet your feet. We'll be here in your forward fold for a couple breaths. Again, plenty of options here if you'd like to move into ragdoll to take hands around opposite elbows, or maybe just allow your head to hang, arms to hang. Might even feel nice on your back to take a slight bend at your knees. Noticing how certain poses might create different desires in us. So we really have a wonderful opportunity today to gain insight each time that we transition and move into a different pose. Take one more full round of breath and exhale out. And as slow as you possibly can, rise all the way up towards a standing position, head being the last to rise, and we'll arrive in mountain pose. Adjust anything that you need, maybe grab a quick sip of water. Then once you're here, we'll stand tall, acknowledging what needs to turn on in your physical body to stand fully supported in this mountain. Really acknowledge the collarbone, roll the chest forward, shoulders back. And maybe even start to lengthen out through your side body so it almost feels like you're growing a couple centimeters. And ground down into the feet, hug muscle to bone into the legs. So even in this simple standing position, it feels like a very empowering pose, especially when we're hugging tight into our own power. We'll start to move into some sun salutations. Inhale, reach your arms up. And exhale, forward fold, release. Halfway lift, inhale, hands towards the shins, gaze forward. Walk out to find your plank pose. So we've been here before. First chaturanga, option to lower the knees down, either cobra or upward facing dog to lift the quads. Downward facing dog, press back. And acknowledging any shifts that might have happened now that we're starting to move a bit faster. What comes up for you amidst this process. Gaze forward, step the right foot forward, runner's lunge. Maybe you want to dip the hips or even drop the back knee. Step all the way up towards the top of the mat, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, forward fold, release. We'll rise all the way back up towards mountain pose. Option to sweep the arms high first, and then arrive full mountain pose once again. We move through sun salutation once more. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift, inhale. This time, step the right leg back, runner's lunge. Option to drop the back knee or down. Plank pose, step it back. Choosing if you want to move through your vinyasa, we're going to arrive in downward facing dog in the next couple breaths. Option to move through chaturanga, up dog or cobra, and downward facing dog, press back. Big breath in here. Another sigh out, lion's breath. Let's take a quick child's pose. Again, any variation of child's that feels really lovely for you. I'll add on a couple options if you wanted to explore. While you're here, if you'd like a side body stretch, walk your hands towards the right side of the mat. Maybe place that right hand on top of the left and drop the right cheek down. We'll continue to breathe here, expanding the back body, using your diaphragm to breathe even deeper than maybe you have had all day. We can use this as grounding energy still. Take one more breath on this side. Then move towards your opposite side. When we become lost in desire, we are put firmly into the framework of linear time. We become focused on getting what we do not yet have or on keeping what we do have. We become oriented toward the future. To be caught in this concept of linear time brings us to what in Buddha's teaching is called bhava, or becoming always failing into or falling into the next moment. It is as if before each breath ends, we are leaning forward to grasp at the next breath. Whatever position of child's pose that you are in, let's arrive back into downward facing dog. So to create more purification from desire, we move towards gratitude and compassion. So during this sequence, I invite you more to move towards either gratitude, compassion, or even both when you take note that you want to move into desire instead. Let's continue to move the body. Reach the right leg up towards the ceiling. Bend your knee, open up your hip. Again, taking note of any physical shifts that you want to add on, maybe a couple circles into the hip joint. Last breath here. Knee towards your nose, draw in, connect. Kick all the way back up, three-legged down dog. Step it forward to find warrior one. We'll be here for a couple breaths, just allowing ourselves to ground, experience this posture, again, where the mind goes within this space. Allowing yourself physical cueing for your body. You might even want to draw that right foot over towards the right side of your mat to continue to create space for your hips, so it feels more like train track legs rather than a balance beam. How can we continue to show up in gratitude and compassion here? Take one more full breath. We'll arrive in plank pose, step it back. Before we move towards chaturanga, we'll take a side plank, left arm down, right arm high. Option to always drop the left knee down, or maybe even reach the right leg up. Last full breath. Vinyasa as your option. We again meet downward facing dog. Again, if you're moving through, move towards up dog and downward facing dog, arrive. Set up for the other side. Left leg goes up. Bend the knee, open the hip. We'll stay a couple breaths. Usually desire pops up for me when I like to compare one side versus the other. And I can acknowledge gratitude by giving myself grace for having 2 working legs that feel strong and powerful. Step it forward to find warrior 1. Inhale, reach up. And we'll be here for about 2 to 3 breaths. Tuning into this side of your body. Last breath here. And plank pose, come back down. We'll move back towards side plank, right arm down, left arm up. And taking any modifications of a pose that you'd like. Maybe that left leg lifts again. Again, option for your vinyasa, chaturanga, up dog to down dog. We'll continue to add on to that sequence, using that as a foundational baseline for our practice today. When you're ready, right leg goes back up, bend your knee, open your hip. Option to stay or flip your dog. If you're flipping, come in slow, being mindful of the transition. Kick all the way back up, 3-legged position. Knee towards your nose, connect. Kick back up. Warrior 1, step it forward. Inhale, reach your arms high. From here, we'll add on for humble warrior. Interlace those hands behind the back. Puff your chest. And exhale, drop your chest down. Tendency here, or at least my desire, is to always want to pop my booty out towards the right because it feels more comfortable for me. But instead, can you zip that booty back in line with the left? And just notice more support into the entire lower half of the body. We'll take one more full round of breath. Your next breath, release those hands down towards the ground. Right arm stays down, side angle. Right arm up, right knee stays bent. Anything that you need to adjust into the back leg, go for it. Maybe take a block underneath your hand or even right elbow towards your inner thigh line. And explore the top arm, reaching bicep over your ear. And we'll transition towards a twist. Drop that left hand down, pivot on the back heel, reach your right arm up. All right, from here, we're coming back towards side plank. So the left hand's already down. A couple options to move in. You can either drop that left leg down and then swing the right leg back for grounded side plank, or you can keep the leg stacked to swing the right leg back to stack both legs together. Take your time to move there. Continue to breathe, most importantly. It's hard to notice desire in side plank. Usually my desire is just to take me out of the pose. Again, option to move through your vinyasa. We meet back in downward facing dog once again. We'll be here for about 2 to 3 rounds of breath. Give yourself plenty of time to take a child's pose or maybe a sip of water. Before we move to the other side, a great place to offer yourself compassion and gratitude before moving. And this is more of a daily reminder to take the time to send compassion to yourself. On your next breath, lift your left leg back up. Bend your knee, open your hip. Option to stay or flip your dog. If you're flipping, start to move slow to ground your left foot down, press the hip flexors up. And we'll move back towards 3-legged dog to square off the hips. Knee towards your nose, draw in. Kick all the way back up, lengthen it out. Warrior 1, step it forward. Once you've arrived into the feet, we'll add on humble warrior with the upper body. And seeing if you can remember to switch the hand grip. So it's probably going to feel like it's the non-dominant hand. Just allowing yourself to switch out and then drop your chest back down. Check in with your alignment. Notice if that left glute wants to pop out. Always know you can also drop your right knee down for support in this humble warrior. So there's always different places to go. Everyone's journey on their mats and even off their mats is going to look quite different. Last full breath here. If you're in the bind, release the hands. Side angle, left knee stays bent. Start to pivot your chest open. Great place to reach the arm up, maybe half bind. Any expression with the upper body that feels best for you in this present moment. Desire might say that you have to show up the exact same way each time that you take a pose. But again, how can we counteract that? We can take compassion to take a different variation. Your next breath will start to move toward your twist. Drop that right hand down, pivot on the back heel, left arm up. However you'd like to transition toward your side plank, the back knee can drop or maybe stack the legs. So right hand stays down. Continue to lift for one more breath. Optional vinyasa in between. We meet back towards downward facing. Same amount of time, about 2 to 3 rounds of breath. And we'll continue to add on. Yay. So even adding on more poses than we did just a bit ago. We'll change it up in the variations too. Reach the right leg up. Bend your knee, open your hip. Get an option to stay or flip your dog. 3-legged, rise back up. Knee towards your nose, draw in. Kick back high, inhale. Warrior 1, step it forward. All right, so last time we took the humble warrior shape arms where we interlaced. This time we'll move with eagle arms. So left arm is going to come underneath the right. We'll take a couple bows down just to steady our balance. So it kind of looks like humble warrior where you start to dive your chest down towards that inner part of the thigh line. Lift back up. Exhale, lower. Lift back up. We have one more time, lower down, stay here. We'll move towards side angle once again, unthread the arms, right arm down, left arm up. And we'll change it up from here before moving towards our twist. Start to rise up towards that warrior 2. So first time that we've entered into this position. Give yourself a second to steady yourself. Maybe you need to shift the feet a bit. Reverse your warrior, reach back. Now cartwheel the hands down, frame the front foot out, pivot on the back heel. Left arm down, right arm high, twist. Again, you can stay here. Maybe move towards side plank with knee down or knee up. Drop both hands down towards the ground, plank pose. Option to move through another vinyasa. We meet downward facing dog, but we're not done. We're going to keep this flow moving. Take your gaze forward, step or jump towards the top of the mat. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, reach all the way up. Hands towards your heart center. All right, we'll move into a balanced pose of eagle. Now that we've moved and opened up into the upper body. Sink down chair pose first, arms up. We'll start on the right leg over the left. If you wanted to add on the arms, right arm comes underneath the left arm. Great place to give yourself a hug or hands towards heart center instead. You can even use a block underneath that right toe for support, or even ground the foot down towards the mat. Take your time to slowly unwind the arms first. Right knee towards your chest, one-legged mountain. Swing your leg back, warrior three. So we're adding on a lot of poses this time, y'all. Step it back to find your high crescent. Reach your arms up. Warrior two, open up. We'll meet towards a star pose. So just turn the feet in. Inhale, reach your arms up. And wide-legged forward fold will come all the way down towards the ground. We'll be here for a couple breaths, just giving yourself plenty of time to allow steadiness and balance into the feet. Any options to move your legs side to side, or even take a twist into the upper body. We'll take one last pose. Inhale, lift halfway. We're turning towards the back of the mat. We'll still move into the right side of the body that we've really been opening up this entire part of the class. Walk your hands towards the back for lizard lunge. So we'll be here in this pose a bit longer with either knee up or knee down, whatever feels nice for you. Again, great place to grab blocks. Place them either underneath your hands or underneath your forearms. If you also prefer, you can add on a twist or even cat grabs its tail. And if you're similar to how my mind responds to poses that require stillness, this tends to be where desire pops up for me the strongest, especially because my body tells me to move and move to the next pose. But instead, can we continue to stay, gain insight from what our mind is telling us, and then maybe offer gratitude or compassion instead? It's wonderful that a practice that also has asana, the physical element, really digs deep into all the other aspects of our humanity, of who we are as a human being. Take one more full round of breath. And however you'd like to transition out of this, you can move through another vinyasa. We're going to meet back downward facing dog. We're still turned towards the quote unquote back of the mat. Promise we'll make our way back towards the front when we move towards our next side. Once you're back towards your downward facing dog, take a couple breaths to reestablish where you're at. Knowing that you can come into any other pose, really anytime during the class. Knowing that my cues are just suggestions to invite in further curiosity. And in the next breath or two, we'll start to move towards the left side of our body. On your next inhale, reach your left leg up towards the ceiling. Bend your knee, open your hip. An option to stay or flip your dog. Wherever you're at, three-legged position. Draw your knee towards your nose, exhale. Inhale, lift back up. Warrior one, feet again. We set up steadiness in the lower half of the body first. And then let's add on eagle wrapped arms again. Left arm underneath the right. And we'll take a couple times to bow down. So using our core to support our upper body, slow and steady, lower down. Inhale, lift back up. 2 more times, lower. Inhale. Last time, exhale, hold. Side angle, left arm down, right arm high. Unwind the arms. We're not here as long this time. It's allowing ourselves a breath here to feel out the pose. On your next inhale, rise up to find warrior 2. Anything that you need to do to adjust the feet, adjust your stance. We'll continue to shift. Reverse your warrior, reach back. Cartwheel the hands down, frame that front foot out. Right hand stays, reach your left arm up. Option again to stay in the twist, maybe side plank or drop the right knee down for side plank. Then when you're ready to shift out, optional vinyasa, we meet in downward facing dog for transition. Gaze forward, step or jump towards the top. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, forward fold, release. Chair pose. Probably the other really big part of a yoga class that creates desire for me is chair pose. We'll use this to set up our eagle. Left leg over the right this time. Left arm underneath the right arm. And you can give yourself the hug. Use any props that you'd like to support yourself in this balancing posture. Take one more full breath. Then unwind the arms first on your inhale. One-legged mountain, lift your left leg up. Warrior 3, pendulum swing your leg all the way through. We'll use this balancing posture to shift back towards our high crescent, reach your arms up. We're back towards warrior 2 again, right knee bent. Then star pose, reach all the way up, straight legs. And forward fold, come all the way down. And we use this opportunity to continue to open up into our inner thigh line, create stability to really root down into the mat. Take about 1 to 2 more breaths. We're almost back to the real front of the mat. That creates desire in and of itself. And let's meet to find lizard lunge on your other leg. So walking your hands back towards the front of your mat. Left knee is now bent. Hands are towards the inner part of your left leg. And great place to grab some blocks. Place the blocks underneath the palms or even add on the twist. About 1 to 2 more breaths here. Let's slowly come out. We'll meet in the next couple breaths towards your downward facing dog. Take anything in between that might feel lovely on your body. That could be the vinyasa, that could be a child's pose. And let's all meet into child's pose. It's taking our time to get off our hands for a couple breaths. Feeling the grounding back into the mat. Any variation that feels inspiring to you. Could be arms forward, maybe arms back. We'll move into a couple more strength building postures before we move all the way down onto the mat. Wherever you're at, rise up towards a tabletop position. Give you a couple options to move into. So maybe you want to move into forearm plank. So forearm plank can be with knees down, it can be with knees up. You can also explore Dolphin Pose to keep the forearms down. And it looks like a downward facing dog, but your forearms are now your hands. Whatever you've chosen, we'll be here for about 3 to 5 breaths. Maybe in stillness, maybe you're lifting a leg, or even both to come into an arm balance. Take about 1 to 2 more breaths here. And on your next exhale, drop your knees down, tabletop position, rise back up. We'll move into another camel pose, second time we've been here. Hands towards the hips, press your hips forward again, open up the collarbone, act as if you're squeezing the shoulders together. Each time we move into a pose for maybe the second or third time, a desire might pop up, drawing comparison to one or the other. Slowly release, tabletop. Downward facing dog, rise back up. Gaze forward, step or jump all the way through, and we're moving into boat pose. So speaking of desire and maybe not wanting to be in a pose, this is definitely one of the poses that continues to challenge me in different ways, not just physically, but also mentally. So feet can be down, maybe legs up, using your hands to support yourself. You can also reach your arms forward or even legs straight. We'll be here continuing to stay with the breath for about 3 to 5 inhales, knowing that you can change it up whenever you need. Maybe even hands down towards the ground. Keep your chest lifted. 2 more breaths. Last inhale. And exhale, release those feet down. Give yourself a big hug. Sending compassion here for showing up. Trying on challenging poses today. And butterfly pose. Feet together, knees wide. So taking a counter pose here. You can either stay upright into your body or maybe even start to forward fold over your legs. Continue to use the slowness of your breath to draw awareness towards. Your next exhale, lift your chest back up. Take your knees back together and lower all the way down onto your back body. We'll come into a couple more back bends, knowing that you can always stay in reclined butterfly if that feels best for you today. Maybe you grab a block, place it underneath the sacrum for support for supported bridge, or we'll move into bridge pose first. Press the feet down into the mat, lift your hips up. Continue to shift the weight more into the heels to stay active into your entire leg. Great place to even interlace your hands behind your back. Last breath to lift. And exhale, lower down. In the in-between, you can windshield wiper your legs just to create some more support into your lower back. Either second round of bridge or option for wheel. I'm going to be demoing bridge again. That's because I have a slight shoulder injury. So we honor our body where it's at. If you're moving into wheel, you ground your hands down, press your arms straight. Take one more breath to lift here, and exhale, slowly release back down. Give yourself a big hug, knees in towards your chest, and rock side to side. Let's ground our feet down. Know that you can take any other variation of pigeon that feels best. So that might be on your belly or even double pigeon. But if you prefer to stay on your back, which is what I'll be demoing, cross that right leg over the left for your pigeon on your back body. Legs can stay as they are, or maybe thread your arms through the space you created and grab underneath your hamstring, or even directly underneath the knee on top of the shin. We'll be here for even longer than lizard. So this will be our longest hold for about 7 to 10 breaths. Continuing to use our breath to guide us. And maybe shifting back towards gratitude or self-compassion. Especially if you start to notice desires pop up. And that they'll always come up and be there. But receiving them rather than chastising them. Last 3 breaths here. And slowly switch out your legs towards your other side. Recommend passing through a similar variation, but knowing that if one side definitely does feel injured or completely different, change it up as you need. Same cueing offered before with the demo on your back. You can thread or keep your feet grounded. Being kind and gentle in these slower poses. Last 3 breaths. And release, knees back in toward your chest. We'll find a happy baby. Maybe peace fingers around your big toes. Knees can be bent, or even hands onto the outer edges. And sometimes I don't even like to take my feet up at all, or I can just take my knees wide and still experience the hip opener. For these last few moments of the class, you can come into any inversion that you would like to explore. So I'll be demoing waterfall with legs up. Great places to slide a block underneath the tailbone. Of course, if you'd like to move into handstand, maybe legs up the wall, or even shoulder stand, you have about 5 to 7 breaths to explore your inversion practice today. Allowing some play into these final postures that we're taking. Even if play doesn't look like in the physical, it might be in the mental. We'll slowly release out to find fish pose before coming into one final twist. To set up for fish, ground your palms face down underneath your glutes, press the forearms into the mat, and lift your chest up, almost like you're being pulled by a string. One more breath to lift. And exhale, lower all the way down. We'll take supine twist today. Draw your right knee in toward your chest. And send your right leg over towards the left. Gaze can stay up towards the ceiling, or maybe you gaze away from your bent knee. Continue to offer this sense of loving awareness for yourself as we start to close out this class today. And come back towards the center. Draw your left knee in toward your chest. Start to send that right leg long. And move over towards your other side for your twist. Come back towards the center. One last final hug, knees in towards your chest. Round your nose to meet your knees. And Shavasana is where we'll meet for these final few moments of class. Whatever shape that feels supportive for you, could be a seated position, be a star pose on your back, maybe even on your belly. But continuing to offer ourselves loving kindness in our Shavasana, as this is another pose, just like every other pose that we entered, where desire might want to pop up. Let go of your breath or any sense of control of it. So honor the natural breath of inhaling and exhaling. Buddhist teachings really describe that in order to purify our minds of desire, we continue to develop this sense of gratitude. It's really the idea of walking around with the feeling that we do not have enough, that there is never enough, and that we are not enough. But we can still recognize that the world is in fact magically providing with just what it is providing. So we can continue to acknowledge our own internal and even external cravings. And also know to be true that true happiness cannot be found in something or some person. Is just as the world continually changes and shifts, levels of happiness might be bound more temporarily. But instead, if we continue to create a heart full of gratitude, which is kind of like a muscle in and of itself, we might have a foundation of love in any experience that we come into. So as you're continuing to be in your final resting pose, maybe you want to bring into your mind's eye something or even someone that you can offer gratitude towards. And that is also inclusive of our own selves. And just like how we show up in yoga, where we continue to notice desires, the muscle of gratitude also has to be cultivated. We practice working that out every day as well. These final few breaths of the class, and you can continue to extend gratitude to carry you off your mat. Might also feel nice to let out any sighs of tension or any encouraging words that you'd like to send yourself before fully exiting the practice today. And then when you're ready, start to create some movement into your body to come out of your Shavasana.